Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for joining us here at the final session on day 3 of the International Investors Lounge program. And thanks to everybody who's watching this on demand as part of our live program from EXPO Real 2023. For those who don't know, my name's Richard Betts. I look after a lot of the content here, and we publish both Real Asset Insight, focused on the main markets, and also Real Asset Impact, which is focused on ESG, as well as purpose-driven investment and social impact strategies. We're going to be today talking about young leaders and also, I guess, where we see the industry moving from here, what the priorities are, and I suppose what that means for the older generation of people such as me. Matthew, let's start with you. Brief introductions, and we'll move our way down the panel. Matthew.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Leguen de Lacroix. I've been in the commercial real estate market for 30 years or so, and I am now working for SIOR, the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors, which is a professional organization for real estate brokers specialized in commercial real estate.
Great. Ariana.
Thank you, Richard. I'm Ariana Popal. I work for Bloois, one of the German lenders, and I'm in a team for all the cross-border deals of our international markets. And I started my career with Bloois, so I entered the industry with it, and very excited for the financing development of the industry.
And you're also part of the chair of the ULI Young Leaders.
Thank you. Yes. So that's the 49% of my job time, as my bosses like to underline. I'm also working with ULI, so the local chair for Berlin. But right now with the European Executive Committee, we're establishing 10 new initiatives this year. So lots of work ahead of us.
Great, thanks. Sander.
Yeah, thanks, Richard, for having me. So my name is Sander Verseput. I have a background in real estate and housing management at Delft University, and 11 years ago I started my own company, which is Chainels. We are established in the Netherlands, Rotterdam. Currently we have 40 colleagues working on our tenant experience platform for all type of multi-tenant properties, and our goal is really to provide tenants with one-stop shop with all the info they need to live or work in a nice way in a building.
Great. Ron.
Thanks. Great. My pleasure. Well, my name is Ron van Bloois. I'm associate professor at Amsterdam School of Real Estate. I'm the co-founder and chair of the Senior Housing and Healthcare Association, and also working on Impact. Impact started as a journal, but yesterday we announced that we are creating a community of impact with also special attention for the young leaders.
Yeah, and I think that's an important area, and I know that's something SOIR are doing as well. So that focus on, I guess, what the young leaders are thinking, what their perspectives are, and then how that's going to drive the industry moving forward is going to be really interesting. Maybe let's start with you, Ariana. You mentioned there that there's a number of things that you're doing within the young leaders element. I suppose it would be interesting, first of all, to get your idea of how you found the real estate industry when you came into it, firstly, because I knew you came in from other areas you mentioned there, but also, what are some of the initiatives, in terms of the perspectives of the young leaders group, what are they focused on?
So I think we had this conversation last year, actually, in a similar setting where we said, when I entered, what is going to be changed. We spoke about positive leadership a lot. And a new word that I learned actually from Asem El-Alami, who you frequently also spend time with, is stewardship. So I think this is what we're focusing on with the young leaders as well this year. It's the next generation. There's a lot that has been done for us in the industry, but now we need to also deliver, and we need to set the goals. We need to meet the goals. We need to perform. And then from there move on. So all the initiatives that we're doing right now are focused on the young leaders, which is a huge group, but to make sure that they remain integrated and they move on among ULI to the next group, for example, that we maintain the momentum. Of course, we're talking a lot about females in real estate. I think when we run around the corridors, it's different than it used to be, what I hear from you, because this is how I was raised. This is normal for me in the industry. But the main focus, of course, for the cities, how can we make the cities more sustainable? And this is what ULI stands for mainly. This is where my touch point between the financing part and the ULI meets. a lot of education towards making the cities of tomorrow work, and we're trying to learn from each other. The globalization was the strongest with institutions like ours, and we have the chance from each city to learn what are they doing in Berlin that can be used in London, what are they doing in Madrid that can be used in Munich. We're learning, we're taking especially the assets that right now have topics maybe, putting committees on them and learning from that.
Okay, great. I want to pick up with you in a second, Herman, but could we get a handheld microphone? Would that be possible? That's great. Sandra, just before we do, I wanted to pick up from you. Obviously there you mentioned that you're entrepreneurial, you've started something. It's interesting that you started that in real estate. I find that very encouraging. So I suppose what drove you to be in this industry, and why what caught your attention really?
Yeah, I think in the beginning we were just enthusiastic students that want to build a new technology company. So first of all, we had this open business-to-business platform, so companies could subscribe, and the idea was to build kind of a LinkedIn. However, that didn't work out, so there was not that much interaction. And then actually by accident, we came in touch with real estate companies and tenant associations, and they were sharing their struggles. So it was kind of by accident, but I always had this entrepreneurial mindset, mainly because my dad is also an entrepreneur, so that's more a family thing, I would say. Yeah. Okay, good.
I'm just going to come to you, Herman, because I know that you've got to head off at a certain point, but it would be good just to get your perspective, somebody who's been in the industry for a long time. I know that at Cairn as well that you've got a young leaders group there, so it would be interesting just to know what the perspectives are from there and what you're seeing, and is that informing your strategy?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rich. It's a pleasure to be here. Indeed, working for Cairn, which is basically the Dutch Council of Shopping Centers, to put it a little bit in international context. So looking to our organization, of course, we have, including myself, 2 50-plus-year-old employees. So we are not typically, I would say, a young organization, although we still feel young and vital. But of course, we have about 300 members, and we serve, let's say, the industry. And I would say one of the pillars, of course, is the new gen, is a new generation. So obviously within, and that's crucial, I would say, for our association. Basically, of course, for the new gen members themselves, but also the membership, the senior membership expects that. And within the association, obviously the new gen as an autonomous community within the association. So they learn to organize themselves, can do their own things, but also education, mentorship, idea exchange, etc. So a little bit, let's say, the interaction from the senior membership to the new gen, but also the other way around. I mean, we are talking about marketplaces, we are talking about center areas, we are talking about catchment areas, people's places. And when we look to those places, obviously, Generation Y, Generation Z, crucial for the success of those areas. So that actually, with the new gen, we also have the deal, reversed education, organize something for the community, for the association as a whole, and let's make the oldies learn and tell them what actually the newcomers, what the future generation actually wants to have out of their places.
No, that's good. And Ron, maybe just picking up with you as well, because as well as you mentioned there that the Senior Housing and Healthcare Association, and with Impact, we're launching a kind of green leader element and a young leader element as part of that. But obviously you're also a professor at Amsterdam School of Real Estate, so you're kind of seeing people who are coming through in the industry. What's your sense of that? And have you seen a change in terms of perspectives, a change in terms of the people who are doing it? Is there an element more diversity beginning to come through? Because I think that's an important element.
Yeah, for sure. I think diversity, and that's also the reason why I'm very keen in joining this type of conversation. We need more colorful professionals. And I would like to highlight, I think, 3 items. I fully agree with stewardship, because I think young professionals are keen on new type of leadership and also ownership, having ownership themselves. I think the second part is the purpose-driven side. I do believe that young professionals are more and more keen on climate, making impact via ESG, searching for impactful asset classes like senior housing, healthcare, real estate. And I think the third perspective is also let's call it the need of the today's real estate environment, that we need all-round professionals. for example, Sander, I think digitalization, use of data is one, but also the interconnectedness of real estate is becoming more and more complex, and I think we need a different type of professional. And when I look at, and of course, Amsterdam School of Real Estate is a postgraduate university, so you need already 7 years of track record before entering my lectures. However, I think the interconnectedness is very challenging. So I do believe next to real estate economics, we need also more emotional intelligence to be successful. It's also about stakeholder management, for example. And I think that's quite a challenge for today's professional to have this type of all-round background, which is partially education, but it's also lifelong learning, because when you're entering the real estate, it's also all about collaboration. I think that's the final point to address, that the time that we were working from a power perspective, that's old school real estate. And I do believe in collaboration, but it takes a different professional with a different attitude.
Okay, interesting. And collaboration is an interesting point, because SIOR is literally about collaboration across the world in many ways. So you're probably seeing, Matthew, I guess, perspectives from across your membership. But it would be interesting to know, I suppose, in terms of the sort of younger leaders, what are you doing there? What are you seeing coming through? Are you beginning to see changes as well?
Yes, well, being a mentor for the new leaders in the real estate profession is an integral part of SIOR. So just to explain a little bit, SIOR is a little bit like RSCS in the sense that we have an admissions procedure for professional commercial real estate agents, or brokers, realtors as we call them in America. I think our median age is around 53, 54 years old, but we've seen a 24% increase in those under 34 years old in our organization. We have so this designee membership, which is for brokers that have at least 5 years of experience. They have to prove their professionalism in the market. We have the member associate, which is for the next gen. So we're encouraging members to join us. They just need 1 year minimum experience in commercial real estate. And the number of member associates in our organization has jumped 60% year on year this last year. So that's really fantastic. And we have this mentor program where each member associate has to have a mentor in the organization to be able to learn and progress in the profession with them.
Okay, good. And it would be interesting, Ariana, just to, in terms of the priorities, Ron there mentioned, I suppose almost a different type of skills and a different type of person that we need to bring in for the industry of the future. So it would be good, I guess, just to see what kind of priorities you have when you're looking at the future of the industry. What are you hoping it's going to be like? What are your aspirations for where it should be?
I think I agree with Ron with the different sets of skills, because right now we have topics that we haven't had before, and I think this is also the thriving time to have impact, to create impact. You don't need to look for different asset classes. You can just take the ones that we have, and we need to transform our whole portfolio of our whole stock of real estate. Especially in Europe, we're doing a lot of work, and we can do it. But we need to look differently at solutions. And I think what we've seen, a very perfect culture switch and mindset switch within the bank. I work for a very conservative, typical covered bond bank in Germany. And right now, as you know, I've started taking over a portfolio 3 years ago from someone who retired now. So I've taken over the portfolio. We went hand in hand. So at every point I would stop and say, okay, what have you always been doing with this? And everyone looked at me and said, well, we don't know for 20, 30 years, because those have to be solutions that are new. And this is where we have a chance to creatively have impact, to creatively support, to actually have a chance to be taken very seriously from the beginning, because we can structure it completely anew and say, hey, is this structure working for everyone? Is this solution good for the clients, for the bank, for the general city itself. And it works for everyone, and we can really create a lot of value among the stock that is out there. And I think this changed, but it started, and I still think it needs to start with the mindset and the culture of the big corporations and of the firms in order for us to be able to perform, to work, and to do our part. And that's the stack of skills that will now be with the creativity really helpful, with the emotions very, very helpful. And what I had an interesting conversation yesterday morning with PJ. We had the Impact Breakfast where we said, how can we have resources that are not doing the typical track that we probably, most of us did, that are sitting here, that you are saying as well, with the 7 years of track record that everyone needs there, who fall through the grid, but who are extremely talented, but have studied something else. We are not doing rocket science. Everyone can learn it on the job. So how can we grab those people who are talented? And that's the next focus, I think, for this year for us.
Piggybacking onto that, Ariana, I'm a trustee of the SIOR Foundation, which exists to educate, enhance, and expand the real estate industry to the next generation. The SIOR European chapter runs a competition every year to encourage real estate, business, or finance students to enter the competition and win a place at our global conferences. So we're actually taking a young Indian lady that has just completed a master's in London next week to Chicago, all expenses paid, and it's a fantastic opportunity for any student to get to know our industry and benefit from meeting thousands of real estate leaders from around the world. So,
and do you see? Apologies. Yeah. Do you see the corporations being open to it? Do you have?
Well, absolutely. We try and have as many contacts with universities and course leaders. So it's very interesting to hear from Ron about his experience there. But we want to get the message out to students and get them to apply and win the prize. In fact, next year we're in Berlin for our international conference, and we will invite 4 to 6 European students to participate in that as well. They just have to provide a 1-minute video to say why they should be there as a young leader to meet our members. So great opportunity. Yeah.
And it obviously goes without saying that you will invite Ariana to speak, given that she's in Berlin. I mean,
absolutely. And in fact, we're looking for sponsors too.
We should make a joint event maybe with I and Richard. You should definitely join us.
Very good. Very good. It would be interesting to get your perspective, I think, Sandra, on, I mean, we've talked here a bit about mentorship, how things are beginning to change. Are you seeing that? And also, you've got quite a young team there as well, so you are leading that team. What are you looking for? What are the types of people that you're looking for? And are you seeing that more often, as Ron kind of said as well, are you seeing that change in terms of the skill sets that are needed to lead this into the the next few years rather than the current one?
Yeah. As a founder of a PropTech company, obviously attracting and retaining talent is super important. On the other hand, sustainable growth is really important, and maybe to talk a little bit about the real estate industry, especially in the first couple of years, we tend to see that the sales cycles were super long. So real estate tend to be indecisive, but over the last years there were more compelling reasons also for real estate to start working together with us. So, for example, Corona was one of these critical events in real estate where they really saw, okay, we need to start doing things differently. So that was actually one of the years where we could really grow. And at this point, I see ESG as another compelling event where real estate needs to start acting. So I think looking at attracting talent, this is definitely a space where a lot of talent is needed. So a lot of companies are looking for these ESG experts or people that really can drive the industry forward in terms of making the industry more sustainable.
Is data something that you help with in terms of ESG?
So we also make sure that the landlord can really involve the tenants in ESG, because if you involve them, for example, in the energy consumption or in how to dispose your waste as a tenant, you can really create more impact, bottom line.
And it's interesting that, isn't it? I mean, we're beginning to see a lot more of a focus around social value, social impact, livability, those kinds of things that would have been regarded as very soft factors, but actually now becoming much more important, both for society at large, but also actually the real estate industry has to reflect that because that's part of the demand, both from institutional capital, but also ultimately from the occupiers, whether that's somebody living in a house, a residential flat, or are inside your logistics facility. So is that something also that is a driving force for this generation and something that you think you will push forward significantly?
Maybe I will jump on this one because I think I highlighted the purpose-driven side, but I think ESG will also be a exclusion element for young leaders, whether you have a company which is compliant on ESG, yes or no. Because I think we will see young professionals who are also more from a attitude point of view, critical in terms of, okay, what kind of ESG set is my own company driving forward? And I think when we also look at exclusion in ESG, I think it's also needed that we will see a shakeout of also companies who are greenwashing or social washing. I think that's the second element we see more and more. So, for example, that when we are working in companies who are underperforming on social impact, they don't want to work in this type of countries. Or when they are not working on sustainable real estate, they're out. So I think that's also in terms of the war of talent. It could be also the force other way around. So, but maybe I'm also curious to hear about my peers on the left side.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about collaboration before as well. And what is interesting, I always wonder if it just feels for us that now it's different than it used to be. But when we speak to the colleagues, the collaboration part, we have different conversations now. We look at, I always go back to the asset because this is our common factor, but at least at work. So you have you have the bank that is financing it, you have the investor who's owning it, you have the tenant, and you have generally the city and the state behind it. But what we see now in the conversations, what is different is we want to transform the asset because we need to transform it. It's being regulated through the banks, all right. It's being done through regulation, and if who doesn't like it, we can't change it. We're doing it now, okay? And then we have the investor who says, okay, great, but I need to invest the money, but the tenant is in there, how do I do it? And now the conversation switched this year to this collaboration sense. There's a lot of young people behind it. We need to underline that because the table changed a little bit, but everyone who's there is collaborating. The tenant says, okay, I will not move out so we can have a cash flow. We can do it floor by floor. I will participate in the costs because I want to live in an asset that is a green asset and that is helping instead of making it worse. So every single player at the table is now collaborating, is helping and finding a solution in a common way. And I do think that that is new. It wasn't maybe voluntarily how it got motivated with ESG, but we're here and we're making the best out of it. And I think that really changed with the new generation. That hasn't been the case. There was maybe not power play is maybe the wrong word, but there was a lot of different interests that could have lived individually on that can't now. They have to be commonly said. So.
Okay, good. And Sandra, if you want to pick that up, feel free to.
No particular things to add.
Otherwise,
yeah. Well, I would just add that, in fact, I mentioned the SIOR Student Real Estate Experience Program. Last year, we took 10 students to our conference in Dublin, and one of the winners was an architect, a young architect from Colombia, who is studying, just finishing his master's in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And the last 15 years of his life has been devoted to ESG within architecture. So it's just an example of how the younger guys and girls are getting involved really at a very early stage, and they're pushing it really through the industry. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's been interesting to see actually companies like CBRE Investment Management, instead of having a head of sustainability that is from the investment management side, actually it's coming now from the consultancy side, so this then begins to be more about the implementation of it. And I think that's interesting that different skill sets are now being needed by the industry and coming in, and a lot of the time, and in this particular case as well, that's certainly somebody who's a young leader in that profession, very experienced, but really coming from a different side for what the industry needs now to move forward. I'd be interested to get just from our perspective, slightly different for you, Sander, because you're running the business, but do we see enough young leaders, younger faces in the media? Is there a block from, is there an internal block in some companies to say, well, this is our spokesperson, and when you get to being as old as they are, then you can speak? Or are there platforms where actually you're encouraged to speak on these specific topics? It'd be interesting just to know also how we can approach it from our side.
I think Germany, we're always the mainstream block. We always need a moment for everyone to go. So we're still on the block where we have the female integration part in the companies. We're working very strongly on that. However, it's coming, and it makes it easier if you have young people who have a specific topic that they are passionate about, and they can perform as well. Because what we forget is, yes, the opportunity is sometimes missing, but you also have to have something to say that will get the attention of the table. If you do not, one person speaking less sometimes helps more than 10 people speaking that won't be valuable. So it's coming slowly in Germany, but we have a lot of work to do. So no, we're in the infancy stage in Germany, I have to admit.
Yeah. Maybe to elaborate on starting your own business if you are young.
Yeah.
I think in the real estate industry, the entry barrier is quite high, because I was talking about this slow decision-making processes. And in the Netherlands, we're quite lucky. So we have these business incubators where you can get innovation grants. And the first couple of months or years, you don't have to be that money efficient, and you can really work on implementing your innovation. But I think in some other countries, the entry barrier is even higher. And then if you look at sales cycles, sometimes being a year or 1.5 years, that's quite challenging. So as an entrepreneur, I would really look for these compelling reasons, and then ESG is an interesting one. And probably you can find more on different other elements within real estate where there's really a drive for innovation.
And that would be interesting also to just picking up on that point, Sandra, is I suppose if we want to encourage young entrepreneurs to come into the industry and to be working on the solutions that we actually all need, so I guess what are the things the industry should be doing to try and encourage that?
Yeah, I think some real estate organizations already have a different type of organization, so they start hiring a chief digital transformation or a CIO, whereas 5-6 years ago that was you would always talk to the asset manager basically. So that's, I think, a very good starting point, that they have one point of contact that can at least make sure you get introduced to the right people internally. But sometimes we see that they don't have all the mandates, so then the decision making is still somewhere else within the real estate organization, but they can at least be a good spokesperson to talk to. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm conscious that we've got sort of 5 minutes left before we enter into our kind of Expo survivors lunch and drinks. But I'd be really interested to get, I suppose, where you see the priorities for the future. What are the key things that you want to achieve? And it would be interesting, Ron and Matthew, to also see what are your hopes for that next generation? What do you want to be able to see? Because for sure, my sense is that the real estate world that is going to be driven by the young leaders of the moment is actually going to be the real estate world that I would have liked to have seen 20 years ago, would still like to see now, and if I'm still here in 20 years, would like to be part of it. So it would be an interesting thing just to see where we're heading.
Well, we've on our European chapter board, we have co-opted a chair of the next generation. He's a young guy that is representing our younger members in Europe. We have some communication pieces that go out to the press to promote the next generation. As I said, we have this competition that encourages the younger professionals to get involved and really get in touch with the mentors that we have higher up in our organization. So really, we just have to keep pushing that, collaborate much better and more with the universities and other courses that are around. I've just spent a week in Ukraine meeting with the dean of a university, with a private real estate school there. They don't have real estate education as such as we know it in the rest of Western Europe. So SIOR wants to be the leader there too, helping them, collaborating with them, putting a bachelor's and a master's course together to educate them really at a university level so that they can then carry on and lead us as time goes on.
Great, Ariana.
I think with ULI, we can see it the strongest. There's so many young leaders who are dedicating a lot of their private time to move the subjects. And frankly speaking, they're doing it for free, right? We need to underline it every time because the people are dedicated to the topics, they're working hard on them, and they are ready for it. I'm a bit worried about the next few years where we need to transition the knowledge, because I think that was mentioned today and we didn't speak much about it. It's happening very fast and with a harsh cut that we have the transformations with people who retire who are taking 30 years of knowledge with them. And even if the world is different, we need to be creative with different skills. We need that experience of the last 30 years to at least try to avoid a few mistakes and topics. So I think the main work for us for the next years will be to focus on how to transition all the knowledge from the last generation to the new generation and make sure we can build up on that and thrive.
Great, Sander.
Yeah, I already mentioned them, but I think university incubators can play quite a big role. So we entered like 10 years ago. We were part of that ecosystem at least of the first 3 years, and it was really a safe environment where young people were paired by business coaches. So we could get all kind of advice from lawyer companies, and if some real estate companies would also join that ecosystem and share their pain points, like, hey, we're struggling with this, this, and this, then the bright young people that just entered the labor market can really work on tackling those industry's challenges. That would be quite cool, I think. Yeah.
Great, Ron.
Yeah, well, I think your question is fairly interesting. My dream is that, for example, senior living and healthcare real estate is no longer an alternative, but it will become core. And that's, I think, also vice versa, that it's not your core because we can benchmark. No, it's core because it's the most purpose-driven asset class. And I think we will see a shift out in general, that we will select not because like pension funds are following each other, no, because we have a different criteria of selections. So I think that will be more on ESG related. It will be more on social impact. And I think also retirement is an outdated topic within a few years. So also there's hope for you, Richard, that even in 20 years, there's still a place for you to join. Because I think in general, with longevity in place, retirement will be, if you're 80, you're still young. And if you are keen to contribute and be engaged, there's still a place in the community.
Well, that's at least positive for me anyway. Great. Really interesting discussion. Great to get your perspectives. Thanks very much to everybody who's followed this on demand. This is the final one of our program live from EXPO Real 2023. So thank you to everybody for joining us.